Hey,
Hey, what up, Sam? Now I don't know how this works. Does this mean we're already recording, or
uh, it counts down,
it
I
count?
think.
Oh, it counts down. Yeah, but that's the
Oh, it
thing. It wasn't.
did the first time, but now it's counting up.
Yeah, so I think we're already on the air. So,
We're making a
how you
pod.
doing?
Excellent user interface.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're newbies at this. Everybody listening. So,
Yeah.
all right. So what's going on, Sam? And what's the topic for today?
So I think we were going to talk about the actors who have played Spider-Man.
Yes, and that would be Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland.
Correct. Yes, we're not counting Turkish Spider-Man or the 70s live action television show.
Yeah, probably also not counting the 80s and 90s embarrassments.
Yeah, yeah. Although the 90s had a pretty good animated Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, if you wanted to do, I mean, I wouldn't be as knowledgeable on the animated voice characters as much, but yeah, of course, there would be no detriment to the Spider-Man legacy.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't really gotten into anything but the one that was in the 90s.
Oh
But the
yeah.
other ones looked good. I believe it was oh, who plays Barney on How I Met Your Mother?
Oh man, I completely forgot, dude. It's
He,
been a
he's
while since I watched How I
he's
Met Your
one of
Mother.
the cartoons.
Oh, okay, that's
And
awesome.
he does a pretty good job from what I've heard.
Excellent.
So I guess we should probably start with Tobey Maguire. Go chronologically.
Yeah, of course.
All right,
So,
so
what are your first thoughts on Toby?
well, I'm a big fan of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, probably mostly because of nostalgia. I'll admit that he was my childhood Spider-Man.
Okay.
But
Now,
I thought he was the best Peter Parker. You know, he had the most pathos. I really like felt like the world was shitting on him,
right, right.
which is like that's Spider-Man all over. Is the world just takes a
Yeah,
dump on him anytime it can.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, Toby was a interesting move for me. I mean, I think Toby Maguire's confidence and charisma has really grown since then. And I did at the time period, because I know it was in between movies, I did kind of prefer his performance in Seabiscuit compared to the Spider-Man trilogy at that time. But as far as his performance goes in Spider-Man, I kind of felt like his portrayal of Peter Parker, um, from a nerd's point of view, was really great, but from a confidence point of view, I think he had one too many awkward moments with MJ. I'm not sure if there were as many awkward moments in the comics, but I just probably would have resolved or touched that up a little bit when it came to the Tobey Maguire portrayal of Peter Parker. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, I think I mean I've never seen Peter Parker as a suave dude. He's
Right.
kind of like the prototypical loser.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I mean I don't really find any fault in how awkward he seemed around Mary Jane. I mean that kind of makes sense. It almost seemed like their relationship went a little faster than it maybe should have, which makes sense. It's a movie. They have to be together by the
Right.
end of the first movie, or else it's not a satisfying first movie.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, as far as like comparing that to Spider-Man in the comics, like obviously she wasn't even his first girlfriend.
Right. Yeah.
She
We
was
got those.
she was the hot popular chick that he would have never even dreamed of approaching to speak to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
so
think I think that's the only way I could forgive the awkwardness and the popularity of Mary Jane. But even Gwen Stacy to an awkward appearance. But staying focused on the Sam Raimi films. I think the other thing about Tobey Maguire's performance to me, Um, this might be a risky move, but I think I would have took a little bit of the, but maybe this would have been maybe slightly overconfident. I think a little touch of maybe a mixing of the personality of Corey Boy Meets World into Peter Parker's character might have been a little more interesting.
Okay,
Because
yeah, a little snarkier.
yes, that's what I wanted to see from Tobey Maguire. That's the word I'm looking for. A little snarkier.
Yeah, yeah, that was if his performance was lacking anything, it was the banter, those
Yes,
quick little jokey jokes.
correct, and that's the because he had the brains of Peter Parker, but he didn't have the wit of Peter Parker. If that makes any sense.
That's no, that's a very very fair criticism. Because that's what Andrew Garfield got praised for the most was that he finally brought that quippy, snappy demeanor
Exactly,
to Spider-Man.
exactly. That's correct. Yeah. So
Because
even though I don't,
I'm sorry.
no, I was saying even though we'll get into that topic later after we finish. Though he wasn't the ideal outward appearance Peter Parker, he was the inward Peter Parker that we were. It's Maguire.
Yes. Although I have to say, Andrew Garfield in those two movies looked exactly like Peter Parker when he was in his late 20s.
Exactly, and I think people kind of miss that from a little bit of a perspective. Getting back to the shitting on Spider-Man type of example, because I feel like people forget that he's not the ugliest dude in the Marvel comics either.
No,
So like he's not over the top good looking, but also he's not like the type of boy that no girl would ever crush over.
that's true. Although it took him a long time to get to that point. Like if you read Spider-Man #1 or like even the Amazing Fantasy, um, he's super dorky. He's wearing a sweater vest, big thick glasses. His hair is all like greasy and like he's as dorky as you could draw a comic book character.
Exactly. And I think that's where my praise of the latter Spider-Man will come in the future of our conversation. But I'm not sure if you had anything remaining about Toby's portrayal of Peter before we get into Toby's portrayal of Spider-Man.
Um, as far as his Peter Parker versus his Spider-Man.
No, I was asking you like, did you have anything remaining on his portrayal of Peter Parker before we get into talking about his portrayal of Spider-Man?
Well, I thought his chemistry with the Aunt May in the trilogy was really good.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
There
and
were a
that's
couple of decisions that were like, like when Aunt May pulls her hand away. That's hard for me to watch every time. I don't know if I could have written a Spider-Man movie where that happened.
right. And to be honest with you, I'm actually gonna go ahead and give the green light on that too. I think the original Sam Raimi trilogy is the best chemistry between Aunt May and Peter Parker that we've seen on the big screen.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I like the actress that plays the new Aunt May. I'm not ready and I'm not comfortable with hot Aunt May.
I think it's great for a new generation, but at the same time, it doesn't have the same emotional depth that we had with the original Aunt May. And then the other thing I would say is that you could tell that Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker was the most broken for Uncle Ben's death and coping that with Aunt May compared to the future Peter Parkers.
Yes. Yes, he didn't get all emo like Andrew Garfield did. He was devastated, rocked to the core. Like
Yes. And that's in my opinion the only thing missing from the new Spider-Mans is that you don't see the same grief that the original Peter Parker gave us in with Tobey Maguire's portrayal of him.
Yeah. Tobey Maguire has an unparalleled crying face. And he got made fun of a lot
Exactly.
for it. It
Exactly.
was effective.
But for the time period, and especially because both of us, that was our childhood Spider-Man, it made sense for him to be that way. I mean, I know he's made himself even more the goofball of a lot of memes after Spider-Man 3, but at the same token, for the time period, we couldn't envision anyone else as Spider-Man at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a lot to owe to Tobey Maguire for that. So anyhow, what are your thoughts on his portrayal of Spider-Man compared to Peter Parker?
Well, that one is actually that one's interesting because of the three actors, he was in the suit the least.
Right.
Because part of the time he was CGI, and part of the time there was a Japanese dude in there,
Yes. Hmm.
which I think actually was a brilliant decision. Tobey Maguire is no gymnast. You know, he was cut, he was ripped, but he couldn't just do a standing backflip.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
some Japanese dude can.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I think that's one bonus point that Tom Holland got is that he's a little more acrobatic than the previous Spider-Mans. But
Absolutely. But
yeah.
not near as much as that dude that was in the suit for the original trilogy. You know,
Oh,
like
of
I
course.
like that was almost like I'm all for people who are purists who want, you know, the to have the actual actor in the suit, but at the same time there is nobody who is the top level of actor and also the top level of acrobat that you could want. That person just is not around.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you do have a couple of exceptions here and there, like maybe a Tom Cruise, but outside of that, it's very hard to find stuntmen who can act or actors who can do stunts.
Sure, and even Tom Cruise is no acrobat.
Right, exactly. I agree with that. But yeah, so as far as his Spider-Man goes, to be honest, I for me, I felt like Tobey Maguire was the only one of the three actors where I feel like did not fully transform into Spider-Man. For me, his portrayal of Spider-Man almost felt like Hulk not wanting to be Hulk. I mean, even though we saw the epitome of his pride come up in Spider-Man 3, it still felt like he never really fully embraced the role of Spider-Man. If I feel like Toby always embraced more the role of Peter Parker. I don't know if that makes any sense or if you agree or disagree.
No, that's absolutely fair. I would say that yeah, he was a more confident Peter Parker in the suit. He didn't transform into Spider-Man, well, like the other two did. They put on the suit and they were a different guy, which you
Exactly.
should.
Exactly. And I think that's what made them closer to the comic portrayals of Spider-Man because I felt like because Toby of the three actors lacked the most wit, you felt like he never fully you always felt like he was a little tad uncomfortable in the suit, almost like the elevator scene
Oh yeah, yeah.
where it's a little
Rides up a
gets a
little
little itchy in the
crotch.
crotch. Yeah, so in my opinion, that was like the perfect. If you just needed one scene to sum up Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, that scene was it.
Yeah, no, that's right on the nose.
Exactly. So now, as far as his evolution of Spider-Man goes throughout the three films, I think obviously, which not to take the Spider-Man, and to be honest with you, I'm one of the few that Spider-Man 2 is actually my least favorite in the three. But I
Oh,
can
really?
credit, yeah, but I can credit Spider-Man 2 for being the definitive Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. Like that's the closest he got to fully transforming into Spider-Man out of the three films.
Sure. You mean his Spider-Man versus his Peter Parker?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. He did have good banter with Doc Ock. The bank vault scene was pretty great.
And then
Throwing those gold coins.
even the scene where he drops his glasses on the ground and they crack, that's still one of my favorite scenes to this day.
Yeah. You know when he gets smacked in the head by the backpack?
Yeah.
That's Sam Raimi holding the backpack.
Correct. That's one of my favorite bonus cutscenes ever. Like, I haven't seen any gag reels to this day as funny as that one. And you couldn't the reaction that Toby gave to Sam Raimi pulling his head out the bag was priceless as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely. And so what are your should we end this segment of the conversation with what we thought about the three films individually, or just like an all over performance of the three collectively?
Yeah, I think we should maybe focus on the performance this time. We can dig a little bit deeper into the movies as a whole, maybe on a different episode.
Yeah. So the final thoughts I leave before we transfer to Andrew Garfield would be, if I were to give Tobey Maguire's performance of Spider-Man a 1 to 10 rating, I'd probably give him maybe a solid 6 to 7 or 6.5. How about you?
Oh, on the spot, I would go a little higher. I would say, given what he did and the fact that there was nothing to go on before that, I would say at least an 8.5.
Oh, okay, wow. So then I'm really interested to see what your rating's going to be on Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland. All right, so all right, so let's get into Andrew Garfield. First of all, the most outwardly appealing of all three Spider-Mans in my book. I don't know if you agree.
The most physically attractive?
Yes.
I guess I never really gave it much thought.
I don't accept it, don't worry.
Gun to my head, I'd say Tom Holland's a little cuter.
Here's what I'll give Tom Holland, and again, this is jumping ahead, but I think Tom Holland was the perfect balance of outward appearance between Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. He's not, again, like what I said before, he's not the epitome of good looking, but he's not the type of nerd that a girl can't crush over. You could still imagine a girl in the classroom crushing over him.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so Tom Holland, I think, fixed that aspect for me.
And I don't think any of the three are ugly dudes.
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. But that's the thing. Even though Spider-Man's nerdy, he's far from ugly. So that confirms again what I said before. So yeah, and then now as far as Andrew Garfield, I think they said that he was a little older than Tobey when he first put on the suit, correct? Hello, Sam, you still there?
There we go. My Wi-Fi dropped out.
Oh yeah, no problem. No, I was just saying that Andrew Garfield, I believe they said, was a little older than Tobey when he first put on the suit, correct?
I do not know.
Yeah, I think Andrew was, just below 30 or right on the brink of 30 when he first put on the suit. Yeah, so now as far as Andrew Garfield's concerned, well, first, I got to admit, when I first started watching The Amazing Spider-Man, I just could not get my head around, like, for me, he was portraying the character of a nerd great, but I couldn't get past that face. Like, I'm like, if this is an average public school, there's no way he's getting this much ignored or this much bullied. Like, it just, I wasn't buying that first 20 minutes to half hour of the high school scenes of The Amazing Spider-Man. I don't know, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it didn't feel like he was like the target of bullying. It felt like Flash hated him personally for some reason that we never saw.
Exactly. And that's actually a great point you brought up on Flash. Yeah,
because
I totally agree with that.
The Flash in the original trilogy, that felt like, oh, this guy's just a bully. Peter Parker is an obvious target. Why wouldn't he go after him?
Exactly. In my opinion, the original Flash that we got in the Sam Raimi trilogy just felt like the dorky bully we got in all the TV sitcoms at that time.
Yeah, that's what Flash is.
Yeah, he wasn't anything special. He's just a throwaway bully character that doesn't really have a backstory to him.
And I feel like comic book movies and comic books in general, like or at least a comic book movie can get away with that because of comic books.
Right.
The main characters, they can be complex and deep and diverse, but those side characters, they should be cartoonish caricatures. You know, if you know
Correct.
if everything in your universe is like real and gritty and grounded, you've got the Dark Knight, which is great, but it's not what
Yep.
Spider-Man needs.
Exactly. Exactly. I fully agree. And I think I definitely think Andrew Garfield was a lot more angsty in his portrayal. While Tobey Maguire, I still buy his tears more for Uncle Ben than I did Andrew Garfield. Although I will give the actual moment when it happened, like the actual moment when Uncle Ben got shot, I will give top performance to Andrew Garfield. In the aftermath of Uncle Ben's death, I'll give it more to Tobey Maguire. But but yeah, so now the other thing is that again, I'm trying to stay on the subject of Andrew Garfield more so than the movie,
Mm-hmm.
but even like rehashing back to the Sam Raimi, when Toby just went on the manhunt for Uncle Ben's killer and just got the job done. Having that part of the story unfinished was I think one of the only things that irritated me about the original Amazing Spider-Man movie. Like, why was that just a forgotten plot for the rest of the movie? And then it seems like you said, he just goes total emo after that, and the next thing, the only thing we hear from Uncle Ben is a voice message by the end of the movie, and it feels inspiring, but it doesn't feel like Uncle Ben's death hurt him as much as it did Tobey Maguire's character.
Okay, now remind me, it's been a while since I've seen the first Amazing Spider-Man. He's looking for a guy with a triangle tattoo, right?
A star tattooed on his left arm.
Okay. And he never finds the guy?
He never finds the guy.
Okay. And that's just that plot thread is just dropped entirely?
It's dropped entirely.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that is a little problematic.
Yeah, I think they were trying to, and I don't want to say it intentionally, but it felt like treating the audience like dumb. Like, okay, we want to make it look like it's not an exact copy of Sam Raimi's film. So what we'll do is, instead of actually having him kill the guy, we'll just have him not find him at all.
Yeah, that's is it in the comics, if I'm remembering correctly, he just like ties the guy up and leaves him hanging
Right.
from a street lamp.
Which makes more sense because I know Peter Parker's not a killer, even though I know something like the death of Aunt May or Uncle Ben would make him feel like killing somebody. I know he's not a killer. So,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
he has to be driven a little bit further than just a guy with a gun.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think, of course, that they're probably never going to venture that again, and maybe until 10, 20, 30 years from now when we get a completely rebooted Spider-Man. But because I think people said they've seen Uncle Ben die enough, they don't want to see that again. Hence Homecoming. But
Sure, it was really only twice though.
oh yeah, but that's the thing. I'm like, they're complaining like they've seen it a million times. We've only seen it twice in the cinematic universe, but I can understand the sentiment. It's like, just like they did the same thing with Batman. Like, why
Oh,
do we have to see the same scene in Batman Superman again? But anyhow, getting back to
Batman's
Andrew
parents
Garfield.
have died 7 times in movies.
Now that is a legitimate complaint, but Peter
Yeah.
Parker is still kind of. I think they were saying because it was still fresh in their minds because there wasn't as big of a time gap between movies. That's probably the reason why they made that sentiment. But anyhow, getting back to Andrew Garfield's portrayal. Anything extra that you had to say about his portrayal of Peter Parker? Because I felt like he did everything he could as an actor to channel his inward nerd, and I felt like it worked brilliantly for his reinvention of Peter Parker.
I would agree in the lens of the time. Um,
Yes, a more contemporary version.
exactly. I feel like that's part of my problem with the Amazing Spider-Man is that so if it's got an old-timey feel, which I feel like Raimi trilogy, there's no feeling of what time it happened. It feels like 2002 and 1950 at the same time somehow.
Right. Right.
And this one is like, no, it's the early 2010s. There's
Exactly.
Sony phones, there's Sony everything everywhere.
Exactly.
And
Oh God. That was like the
he
most head endorsing product placement we ever got, probably in a
Oh
Sony
my
movie.
God, yeah. Never seen so many the Vios in my life. But the thing about Peter Parker is that like again the world needs to be shitting on him. So
Right.
like back in the day, to be geeky was to invite the world to shit on you. Today, that's not the case anymore.
Exactly.
So if you make him this new nerd chic kind of thing, now all of a sudden, where's the external conflict?
Right. Right. I agree.
Which goes back to what you were saying about Flash. Is like, why is Flash picking on him? He's so cool. He
Yep.
skateboards. You know, like
Exactly. And then the other thing I would say that made, in my opinion, this Flash the most likable out of all the Flashes to me is like the part when he pins him against the locker and he says, "Look, I get it. Your uncle died. I'm sorry." Like I think that's the only time we've actually gotten a moment to feel for Flash, even though we have no idea what his backstory is.
yeah, yeah. That's a Flash that I would not have minded seeing become Project Venom.
Exactly.
Wait, I'm sorry, Carnage.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct. Correct. Yeah, and because Amazing Spider-Man 2 unfortunately became another mess of a selling of movies before checking if the audience wanted them. I definitely feel like there was so many potentials to explore with their core characters that they didn't need to throw in that many characters so soon. So yeah, I definitely would agree with you. And actually, you're the first person I've talked to point that out about Flash, about that version of Flash becoming Carnage. So that's a really brilliant idea.
Yeah, that would have been great. Obviously, there's no chance in hell for it now.
Exactly. Again, we will probably be grandfathers by the time someone even tries doing that. Yeah, but anyhow, anything further you have to add to Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker?
About his Parker? No, no. I mean, I mean, it's more about the movie. It was nice to see him get with Gwen Stacy first.
Yes, and I was gonna say that was gonna be my last point. That is the best romantic chemistry interest that we've had from any of the Spider-Mans. I bought that relationship the most out of any Spider-Man film.
Yes, yes, because she's the geeky, approachable but cute girl next door type.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is the perfect starter girlfriend for Peter Parker, which, you know, that's in the comics, that's where he started.
Yeah, and then having them rival about the top of their class just made it like a match made in heaven. Like great brains attract each other. Um,
Yes.
and then at the same token, even outward appearance wise, they just had like a great chemistry of finding each other attractive. So
But then again,
that
that's the whole modern day thing there also it works against it again
again,
because
yes,
she's like by today's standards, she would be the most desirable girl in school.
exactly. By today's standards, she would be the Mary Jane of Sam Raimi's trilogy.
Exactly, which she should not be. She should be dorky. She should not have like she shouldn't be completely unconfident in herself, but she shouldn't have like she shouldn't think that she's hot shit. And
Yeah,
I'm not saying that like she did in the movie like come off as like a bitch or anything or like that she was full of herself, but she'd have to be an idiot not to know that she was desirable.
exactly. And then also she wasn't gonna be like on today's standards, like the what's the word I was looking for? Like the after school teacher for Flash. She would be the girl that Flash hits on, like the original Spider-Man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I completely agree with that. And yeah, so that's about all I got on the Peter Parker side. Now on the Spider-Man side, what you gotta say about Garfield?
Oh well, well, I think we touched a little bit on it earlier about how he had an improvement on the banter aspect of
Exactly.
Spider-Man. Like the oh no, tiny knives, my one
Yes.
weakness.
I remember my college roommate at the time, Braden. He died in the trailer just on that line. He was like, "Where was this Peter Parker in the original trilogy? Like, that's the sorry, not Peter Parker. That's the Spider-Man that I know. Like,
Yeah.
where's that wit? Like, he was so glad it was finally back. I mean, I know he was probably disappointed with the movies as a whole, but as long as he got that wit back, he had hope. Yeah, so I definitely agree with that. And then also, how you said the change was immediate. I felt it immediately. Like as soon as we got the full suit scene, and then he's sitting on the tower, and hey Aunt May, eggs, organic, got it. Like you could tell his tone, his viscerality, everything changed like in an instant. So
Yeah. Like as if he was Spider-Man pretending to be Peter Parker.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I gotta put on my Parker voice right now. Yeah.
Yeah, his voice, like everything about him transformed in seconds, and I was like, they took so long for Toby to do this. Like, probably they said, okay, we don't want a trilogy to take that long. How about we just rush it in the first movie? And I was like, it took me aback how quickly he transformed, but at the same time, I was okay with it, surprisingly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he did just get bitten by well, this is a genetically enhanced spider, but I'm gonna go ahead and say radioactive spider because I'm a purist.
Yes, absolutely. And I still side with you on the radioactive side.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's just like just because of the comic lexicon. Like, I get that it doesn't make any sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. But yeah, I bought that complete transformation. Now, as far as the which was the funnier scene between Toby waking up and saying "big change" or "this meatloaf is so good"? I think I prefer "this meatloaf was so good." But what about you?
Oh, and then he like runs up the stairs after that, right?
Yeah, and then he's on the train, and the guy puts the alcohol on his head, and then he tears off the girl's top, and I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
Okay, yeah, yeah. The scene on the train, yeah, that was memorable. That was fun.
Yeah.
But I do like the subtlety of big change. Like that it's subtle, but it's funny.
Yes, I'll put them as equally iconic. You felt like Toby wasn't trying so hard, where you felt like the direction they gave for Andrew Garfield's change was trying a little bit too hard, even though I felt like it had the same impact on me. I think the only part that left me dying laughing the most, because I have family members like this, is when Aunt May responds, "Why didn't you tell me you don't like my meatloaf? I've been making meatloaf for 37 years. How many meatloafs have I made for you?"
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
She
So
Sally Field, right?
yes, that's what Sally
Yeah.
Field's Aunt May, which she was not a bad Aunt May at all. I would take her over hot Aunt May any day. But at the same token, it still wasn't the original Aunt May that we got.
Yeah, and actually, like I've seen Sally Field in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
I'd still go for that. That's
What
she's
was his
a
name?
little
Oh my
too hot
god.
to be Aunt May for me.
What was his name? Is it Seth MacFarlane when he hosted the Oscars? Was that Joker killer for you?
Oh, what did he make some joke about
When he
Sally
took
Field being
Sally
hot?
Field home?
About what?
Like in the when he took Sally Field home and he said like the flying nun was so sexy and everything.
That's good. I didn't see that.
You got to look it up after we finish this. That would kill you. Just trust me. Yeah, just look up Seth MacFarlane, Oscar, Sally Field, and then you'll see his entire segment on joking on Sally Field with like her right in the front row as he's doing it. And then
Oh, nice.
they actually did a scene. I was surprised Sally Field agreed to it. They actually did a scene where he makes out with Sally Field.
Nice.
Oh my god. Okay. Anyway, enough with the MILF crushes. Now, what's your last remaining thoughts on Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man?
Spider-Man. Well, he didn't really have anything to do with this, but the suit itself, I thought was really good, except for the eyes. And I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't like huge Spider-Man eyes.
This is another big one for me. Because everyone's least favorite cinematic Spider-Man suit was my favorite. The one from the original Amazing Spider-Man. I didn't like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit.
Okay.
For
Yeah, yeah.
some reason, I was buying the shades of the sunglasses on his eyes more than I was buying any of the other suits.
Okay, yeah, it had like a shininess.
It just had a look to it, like it looked modern, but it looked like a suit he could have made up himself.
Okay, yeah, yeah, because they did have that whole him shopping for spandex.
Yeah, and then like the whole sneakers thing on his shoes, and then the sunglasses on his face. Like for me,
Yeah, yeah, they were shiny.
yeah, it made the most contemporary sense, but at the same time gave Peter Parker a little freedom to experiment with his suit. I felt
Yeah.
like he wasn't like tied down to what he saw even though he was inspired by what he saw on a wall from this time a wrestling thing, which I know we got a wrestling scene in the original Spider-Man as well. But at the same token, you felt like he wasn't bogged down to that. You felt like he was a little more creative with it.
Yeah, yeah, no, the first Amazing Spider-Man suit is better than the second. I do agree with that. But my favorite's always going to be the original.
Yeah, and
Um,
I know people are gonna, like you said, are gonna crucify us both for hating big Spidey eyes, but it's just not me.
yeah, well, and it's the newer thing, you know, it's the Ultimates. It's the like the little kid version always has giant eyes.
Right, and this is again, you'll probably disagree with me, but I'm not even a fan of big muscle Spider-Man from the comics. I just like him. I prefer skinny Spider-Man.
Sure, yeah, yeah, like Ditko's Spider-Man.
Exactly. Ditko's version is my epitome of what Spider-Man should be, which I felt like they incorporated a lot into the Homecoming Spider-Man. But as far as these Spider-Man goes, I'm gonna have to go with the original Amazing Spider-Man suit.
Yeah, it's not a bad one.
Oh yeah, I feel like it's the type of suit that maybe 10 years from now people are gonna look at again and maybe say it was underrated, or they're just gonna stay with their stubborn statement and just go with the usual Tobey Maguire fanboys or the usual Tom Holland fanboys. We'll see.
Well, and it might kind of looking back on it at the time, it does kind of fall into this whole like everything's super badass and sharp and shiny and
Yeah,
new.
yeah.
You know, like all the Sony phones, you know, it's everything is this black silver.
Of course, we'll discuss the movie another time. But the main thing I'll leave Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man on is that I felt like he was possibly the best Spider-Man of the three trapped in a mess of a movie.
Yeah, like if he was in a movie that was as good as the first two, then he may be considered the best.
Exactly. And
That's quite possible.
I think people kind of shit on his performance because they shit on the movies, and I don't think that's fair. Just like I feel, I think people are gonna say something similar about Ben Affleck's Batman, where I felt like they shit on Batfleck too much, but not realizing that he's a good Batman stuck in bad Batman movies.
Yeah, he was the best part about Batman v Superman.
Oh yeah, easily. And again, took us all aback. It was almost like, what is Heath Ledger doing trying out for Joker? Well, in the same thing was Ben Affleck doing acting as Batman, and they both like shocked the critics by miles. No one could have predicted how good those performances were.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyhow,
And,
digressing.
real I heard something really good by. Do you know who Movie Bob is? Bob
Movie
Chipman.
Bob. It's been a while, but you can remind me.
But he's a YouTuber. He does like Game Over Thinker.
Right. Yes, I remember Game Overthinker as well.
And he has this thing where he tries to fix movies, and his suggestion was to take Batman out of Batman v Superman entirely and cast Ben Affleck as uh, Lex Luthor.
Now, this one, I know everyone again is gonna hate me on, but I would have took Bruce Willis as Lex Luthor over Jesse Eisenberg.
Sure. Yeah, I would take that as well.
Like, a, at least give me like a what's the word for it? Like a suave bald head guy, as opposed to a blonde haired dorkhead who did a brilliant job in The Social Network, but is probably the most severe miscasting in all of superhero history with Lex Luthor.
Yeah. I really want The Rock to play Lex Luthor.
A Rock, in my opinion, would have been way too much charisma.
Have you seen the Superman animated adventures, like the Bruce Timm Paul Dini?
A couple of them.
So like, can you picture the Lex Luthor from that series?
I still don't think The Rock could do it though. Like I still am waiting to see if they're actually gonna pull through with his performance as Black Adam because I'll be more interested to see that, even though he still wouldn't be my top pick for Black Adam. But I feel like he'll be a much better Black Adam than Lex Luthor.
Oh,
What are
yes.
your
Well,
reasons? What are your reasons for him playing Lex Luthor?
just Lex Luthor, at least in that particular series, is very much like he's the business owner and stuff, but he's very politician-y. And in fact, he even runs for office. And you know, we've seen The Rock play around with that a little bit, but like he's got that smile that like nobody could say no to kind of thing. And if beneath that there was just this brewing ambition that like didn't and it's almost Lex Luthor, almost he's not evil, he's just a sociopath that doesn't care about human life but still wants the best for Earth.
You know
He
who just came
doesn't
to my
care.
mind? Exactly. Who just came to my mind that I think again may or may not have worked, but I still would have taken over Jesse Eisenberg. I wouldn't have mind even seeing a Jason Statham Lex Luthor.
Sure, although I don't think he can not have the accent.
Right. And then the other thing I would say is that what you were saying about The Rock playing Lex Luthor, I could maybe picture, in light of the example you gave me, I could probably picture the Ballers version of Dwayne Johnson as Lex Luthor.
But I don't
Like
think I've seen Ballers.
if he not like the more like not more like the hip hop take in Ballers, but more like the businessman suave fine tuned up a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the ambition, of course. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying, but I still feel like he might be like the most like bulky version of Lex Luthor. Like he seems like the type of Lex Luthor that wouldn't need the robot suit.
Yes,
Does that
yeah.
make any sense? Because he's
Yeah.
so bulky already.
And I don't know if it's the most recent version in the comics, but I think it's Earth 2. No, not Earth 2. That's the old school one. Well, whatever. One of the more recent comic book versions of Lex Luthor, his whole thing in like All-Star Superman, his whole deal is that he has worked his ass off to become as strong physically as he possibly could be, as smart mentally as he could be, as wealthy financially as he can be. He is the peak of humanity, the envy of absolutely everyone on Earth, and he's worked his dick off to do it. But now
Exactly.
Superman comes along, and with zero effort whatsoever, this guy comes in, and he's perfect. You could never dream of attaining that sort of perfection. And just
Exactly.
that fact alone makes him hate Superman.
Exactly. And
And
I think
totally see The Rock going for something like that because it would almost be the opposite of what he did in real life. You know, he was the bad guy wrestler, and he made that heel face turn to be the good guy.
right, right.
So, the reversal of that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then I think the last thing I'll leave on this digress topic with Lex Luthor is I think the closest we've gotten to that kind of ambition was, I know everyone's gonna kill me for forgetting the actor's name. I'm not sure if I don't think it's Jeff. No, it's definitely not Jeff Bridges, but I forgot the name. The guy who plays Obadiah's character in the first Iron Man movie, he
That's
felt
Jeff
like
Bridges.
yeah, he feels like the most close to a Lex Luthor type of character that we've seen on the big screen.
Yeah, yeah, he would make an excellent Lex Luthor. But I thought he was the perfect Ironmonger.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, hands down. So anyway, shall we go on to Tom Holland's Spider-Man or Peter Parker?
Let's show.
All right. So, what's your first thoughts on what Marvel's cinematics version of what's the first impression he made on you in Civil War?
Right away he seemed the most age appropriate. I know it's only a couple of years difference between any of them.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but he seemed
Well,
the most
technically
like someone
no.
who was in high school.
Yeah, technically no, because Toby was, I think, 25, 26. Garfield was 29 going on 30, and Tom Holland was 20 exactly.
20, yeah.
Yeah, so he's hands down the youngest.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it is quite considerably younger. Um, so yeah, that does make a difference. And I guess what he went to a high school, right, for some number of months beforehand to like get into character.
It seems that way. Yeah, I think he did that.
Yeah, I think I remember hearing stories about that, and he would just be like in classes, and he's like the new kid, and you know, he like some girl would be talking to him, and he'd go, "Do you want to know my secret?" Spider-Man, and they'd just be like, "Okay, whatever."
That's cool because probably at that time nobody knew who he was, which I already knew Tom Holland from movies like In the Heart of the Sea and The Impossible. So like I already knew what he was capable of even prior to taking on the role of Spider-Man. But of course, some great actors will never get that type of approval until they're deemed for a franchise or the MCU.
Well, sure, and it's hard to recognize somebody for their talents when you've never seen a movie that they're in.
Exactly. And then of course, it kind of ties you whenever you're franchise or MCU branded, it seems like people know you as that for the rest of your life.
Oh, absolutely.
So it seems like if that is not what you wish for your acting career, then please don't get involved.
Yeah, no, anytime I see any movie, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Loki. That's, you know.
See, even we do it all the time, and it's like a habit that just comes naturally. We weren't even taught this habit.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, continue.
Yeah, his he had the whole like kid thing down. I like he's got kind of a panicked a demeanor to his performance. You know, he's never quite sure of anything, and everything's catching him off guard.
Right.
Which
Right.
I guess now that I say that out loud, like it was charming, but one thing that I've only seen the Spider-Man Homecoming once,
Right.
and does he not have Spidey sense? Like,
That's a really interesting question. It seems like he's always oblivious to his surroundings.
yeah, and that's the opposite of like Spider-Man's greatest superpower is his Spidey sense. If that's the only thing he had, he would still be amazing.
Actually, to be honest, it seems like maybe this might be the main thing that Tobey and Garfield Spider-Man had an edge over with Tom Holland Spider-Man, is that I felt like the previous two Spider-Mans were a lot more agile and aware of their surroundings as compared to Tom Holland always asking Iron Man about his surroundings.
Yeah, yeah. Spider-Man almost can't help but be aware. Like it's not even something that he's thinking about. It's just that his brain forces him to be aware of his surroundings.
Ex- Felt like that was much more accurately portrayed with Garfield and Maguire than with Holland, and that's a point I don't think barely anybody brings up. I think he might be the first.
Yeah, because that was bugging me throughout like watching Homecoming. I'm like, why is he getting blindsided? Like every
like you could not see Vulture breaking down those pillars. Like seriously, like that for me that was insulting to the scene that we got with Green Goblin in the original.
Which one? Or when he backflips out of the way of the
Exactly. Like why couldn't Tom Holland do something like that?
and now that I'm thinking about it a little bit, there have been instances in the comics of Spider-Man where certain electronic devices will disrupt his Spidey sense.
Right.
And I don't think they're going for this, but like maybe in my nerd brain I can make it feel better if I'm thinking that this super high-tech Spider-Man suit is fucking with his Spider-Man sense somehow.
Exactly. You can forgive it if you somehow put an unintentional theory in there.
Yeah, I call that Star Warsing it. Just these
yes.
ad hoc explanations to just make my brain feel better.
Oh my god, that's perfect. That's perfect with the Star Wars reference. Yeah, but definitely, yeah. So yeah, that didn't even occur to me until now. I mean, I was enjoying Tom Holland's Spider-Man so much that I didn't really care to investigate that. Because I just, for me, it was just I just wanted a young Spider-Man. Like that's been my lifehood cry till now, and I finally got it. So for me, I didn't really have that much of expectations for Tom Holland Spider-Man. I just had he's young. That's all I need, and kind of everything worked itself from there. But that now is going to be a nitpick I'm going to hold on to now for future reviews. For future reviews when we talk about Garfield and Maguire's Spider-Man now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point. So now as far as his Peter Parker goes, like you said, I was really refreshed to see the young one in high school, not a bunch of 30-year-olds pretending to be teenagers, as everybody points out. And then now I'm not sure if I should even dive into this subject too much because I want to stay focused on Peter Parker's aspect. But I think also he had the perfect level-headedness when it came to admiring his heroes. Like when he first gets introduced to Iron Man, he's like, you could tell he's starstruck, but he's not like ballistically starstruck like Iron Man is God or something. He's like he's trying to figure out like what his intentions are first before he gets on his fanboy rant. And then I think when we really get into a little bit more of the fanboy or looking for a second father type of deals with the Homecoming movie.
Yeah.
Which I felt like because they didn't venture too much into his grief with Uncle Ben, I felt like it only made sense to play with a plot point that was not discovered with the previous two Spider-Mans, in the sense where that looking for a father figure. I know Green Goblin offered himself to be a father figure in the first one, but this felt like Tom Holland's actor, his portrayal of Spider-Man, it felt like his version was more asking for the fatherhood figure as opposed to it being imposed or offered unto him.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Although this is a problem with like where and when in the MCU timeline they got the rights for it. But I would have liked to have seen Spider-Man be a lot more established before meeting the Iron Man or any of the heroes really. because he was
Like,
always
here's the other thing.
yeah.
Go ahead. No, I was just gonna say, is what you're asking like what they're gonna do with Captain Marvel? Like, you think Spider-Man should have been a prequel instead of a sequel to Civil War?
Yeah, yeah, and then maybe even like in Civil War, you're not just finding this kid, you're just like, oh, I know a guy, like,
Right,
but like they couldn't have done it the way it played out, like they
right, right.
had a decade of movies, and then you want to like go back and 10 years ago, and that it would have been tough for people to follow. I mean, it was hard
Yeah,
figuring out what the hell was going on with the timeline with that 8 years later thing.
yeah, and then it's almost like, where you been hiding this kid for all these years? Like, you've known about this in Queens all along, and you didn't care to share it with the world.
Oh no, no. In Civil War, he says that they established that he got bit by the spider mere months before Civil War.
Yeah, which that kind of makes sense, but like I'm saying, the only pre notion we got to that was the end of Ant-Man, where she says, we got a dude who crawls up the walls. You need to be more specific.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, even if we only got like a few days or a few months taste of that version of Spider-Man, I think that would have been cool.
yeah,
Yeah, like even if we don't get the um because I know people were complaining they didn't want to see Uncle Ben death again.
yeah. Straight up.
But what they wanted to have seen just a slight flashback with a spider bite.
Yeah, see, I feel like even that would have been, people were at the time, and I feel like it's a little bit less now. Just like the word origin was a dirty word.
Yeah, because they said Sony has failed us before. Don't give us any reminders of any previous Spider-Man. Like just give us a Spider-Man that we feel is completely marvelized but not overly explained.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I guess what you were saying a minute ago about Homecoming being a prequel, like that would have actually, if like let's say in Civil War they find Spider-Man and he is, say, like in early college,
Right.
Spider-Man Homecoming is a flashback to when he was in high school right after the incident in New York.
Uh-huh.
And we could visit that whole aftermath of New York thing. They visited it for like, 5 minutes at the very beginning of Homecoming, but it would have been nice if that whole movie took place in that post-incident universe.
And I would agree. The only thing it would be lacking, which would become another person's complaint, unless they divided the movie into halves. I would say the only complaint that we would get there is, where's the new invented Spider-Man suit that we got in Civil War? Because at that time he was just having the street crappy suit, and that was the only thing he was using.
You could have given it to him in Civil War.
Right,
But
right,
hey, Spider-Man, you're doing your thing, and that's cool, and you got your cool classic suit there, and it's rocking. But here's an upgraded suit, and if I give this to you, you can help me beat up a beloved hero.
right. Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of complicated, and I feel like it probably would have messed with the timeline a little further, like you said. But in essence, I'm still satisfied with what we got. I do agree with the Rotten Tomatoes overview critique where it says that for this being the third time that Spider-Man's on the screen, this is the best they possibly could have done with all the fan complaints. Like, it was kind of a movie that maybe we didn't even need, but at the same token, because people were so damaged and bruised by previous portrayals of Spider-Man, it seemed like at least one more was needed.
Yeah, one,
So,
one more was needed for sure. And like I don't think the Spider-Man Homecoming was a bad movie, but I don't think it was the best they could have done.
what
It
I
it, it felt a little bit flat, like I heard so much hype about it, like it was possibly the best Spider-Man movie ever made, and I watched it and I was like, yeah, it was good. It was fine.
here's my issue.
Like,
Here's my issue with Homecoming. Homecoming to me is a great great movie, but the main thing it lacks is it's not as iconic as previous Spider-Man movies.
definitely not.
I would say this, even if The Amazing Spider-Man left a bad taste in your mouth, it still stays more in your memory than Homecoming.
Yeah.
That's the funny part. You'll have Spider-Man 1 and 2 left such a good taste in your mouth that left you with over expectations for Spider-Man 3, and that leaves an icon in your mouth from your childhood. And then you get The Amazing Spider-Man, whether it left a taste in your mouth for better or for worse, it's still stuck in your membrane more than Homecoming.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and there were some, like really amazing shots, the Washington Monument,
Oh
um,
yeah,
the holding the ferry together.
oh yeah.
Those were cool shots.
But for some reason, like you said, all of those stand out to me while I'm watching the film. But whenever I'm reminiscing on the Spider-Man cinematic legacy, those don't stick out to me like the train scene from Spider-Man 2. They
No.
don't stick out to me like Spider-Man's backflip over Green Goblin's glider. They don't stick out to me like even even surprisingly, they don't stick out to me like Peter Parker dancing in Spider-Man 3.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say even him jumping on the parade balloons while Macy Gray is singing.
Exactly. Or like even I could even take ones from like the Amazing Spider-Man. Like it doesn't stay in my head like the first time Spider-Man meets the lizard in the sewers, or it doesn't stay stuck in my head like even though it's illogical to have the web turn into a hand, it doesn't stick out to me like when Gwen Stacy dies in the
Oh
Amazing
my God,
Spider-Man 2.
people have complained about that too. It's so stupid how it turned into a little hand. I'm like, that affected me. That was emotionally resonant. I thought that was a
It did.
really well shot scene.
I don't get why that scene gets so much beef, but in my opinion, it worked for me. I know it doesn't work according to comic book purists, but from a just a cinematic experience standpoint, it works.
Well, I mean, there's very little about the scene that doesn't jive with like the comic book. Like he wasn't given an impossible choice. I think
Right.
that's the biggest theme or the biggest thing thematically that is way different about her death. Like in this
Exactly.
in Amazing Spider-Man 2, she just got murdered.
Right.
In the comic books, she was murdered, sure, but it was because Spider-Man tried to overextend himself. He tried to do everything, and that was the first time he learned that he has limitations.
Right. Right. And I think that's the only thing that could make the comic book version a little more emotionally resonant with some fans compared to the movie version. But as far as what a reinvented version looks like, I still think the Amazing Spider-Man 2 version of it works.
Yes, and they were pigeonholed too, because they can't make it the impossible choice thing because they already did that visually in the first Spider-Man movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So yeah,
Yeah,
so
I
now
wish I could somehow go back and switch the characters.
which characters would you switch?
Like have Gwen Stacy die in the first Spider-Man movie, where in the scene where Mary Jane was dropped by the Green Goblin,
Yes. Wow, dude.
because
That
that's
that
how it
that
happens.
never even occurred to. Gosh, Sam, you really got some great ideas for fixing movies.
Well, they should have
Dude,
called me.
yeah, that would work so well. That would work so well because, in my opinion, the Gwen Stacy we got in Spider-Man 3 was insulting.
Was what?
In my opinion, the Gwen Stacy that we got in Spider-Man 3 was insulting.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was just pure bullshit.
Like, how are you gonna take Gwen Stacy, one of the most iconic girlfriends of Spider-Man's history, and make her a throwaway character?
And a model.
Exactly. Like, dude,
It's
that one hurt.
Mary
That one
Jane
really
is a
hurt.
model. Like in the
Yeah, like now,
thing.
yeah, like now when I see her in Jurassic World, I'm like I can't even remember that version of Gwen Stacy, and probably thank God that didn't destroy her career.
Yeah. Well, that was
I literally have to see Spider-Man 3 to remember that she even played Gwen Stacy. That's how forgettable she was.
yeah. Blonde Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yes, exactly.
Although I did like the Captain Stacy from that movie, James Cromwell. You can't go wrong with him.
Pretty much anything you cast him in, he's gonna work. So, but I still appreciated again, I forgot his name, the new actor that played Gwen Stacy's father in The Amazing Spider-Man. I appreciated his portrayal of him too.
Oh yeah, Dennis Leary.
Yeah, even though his version was a lot more cocky and stubborn, at the same token, though, it still was entertaining.
Yeah, and it fell in line with the whole modernized thing. It made sense in the movie they were making.
Yes, exactly.
But
All right,
like
so
the
I'm not sure how much we got. I'm not sure how much we got out of Tom Holland's Peter Parker, but for time's sake, I guess we gotta close off with Tom Holland's Spider-Man.
I would say he has even less distinction from the two characters than even oh God, a lot of names today. The original Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, I think what you're trying to say is that he has the least amount of differentiation or distinction between his version of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. He's the exact same person.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. You feel like the same what you get when he's in the suit.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like when he's Peter Parker, get a lot of wit that situation. While I feel like when he's in the suit, it's almost like, and spoiler alert, it's almost like when we get to Infinity War and you get Iron Man. One more pop culture reference out of you. I feel like out of all the Spider-Mans, this one has made the most pop culture references in the suit than any other Spider-Man.
I felt
and
that
I don't feel like
it
when
was
he's
a little
Peter
stale.
Parker, he doesn't make that much
joke.
Yeah, and he doesn't make that much pop culture references when he's out of the suit, Tom Holland's character.
Yeah, no, I guess not.
Yeah, when he's out of the suit, he's just like a normal kid. But when he's in the suit, all of a sudden, all these pop culture references are stuck in his brain.
Yeah, I feel like Tom Holland's Spider-Man was like the result of like there were some CEOs sitting around going, "We need to get the kids into Spider-Man," as if
Right.
kids aren't into Spider-Man.
And again, I'm actually, because I don't know how much more we're gonna record for, or probably wrap it up. But now that I think of it, I'm glad I had this conversation with you, because it seems like me and you have more nitpicks with Tom Holland than we thought.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like, now that I think of it, maybe I'm not as hard on the Tom Holland pill as I originally thought.
So actually, he's a fine actor.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't trade him for the world. I'm loving him in this universe.
Yeah,
but
it's just that what they're making his character do, the lines they're giving him, the plot lines they're having him go through, aren't
right, and in hindsight, compared to the previous actors that we've got, there's still a lot to critique about Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because there's a lot of people like worshiping him like the perfect version of Spider-Man, but there's still some nitpicking there.
Yeah, like he's getting a whole lot of credit for being young.
Right, and that's where my fanboy comes in. Like, I was ignoring all that just because of the fact he's young. Like, that's all I wanted. I just wanted a young Spider-Man. But now that I really get into the deep criticism of it, I do miss the Maguire and Garfield days still.
Yeah.
Wow, man. I really didn't expect to end this conversation like this.
Yeah. Although I do have to say, just as in the vein of Tom Holland's acting, his death scene at the end of Infinity War.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let me take that back. In my opinion, that had, as far as just him, as far as just Spider-Man Peter Parker personally, that had more effect and resonance than any other previous Spider-Man that we got.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about it is he didn't even shed as much tears as Tobey. He didn't even have as much angst or drama as Garfield. But the simplicity of a young man missing out on youth and the rest of his life just made that scene by itself emotionally resonant.
Yeah, he was so genuinely scared and confused, and he just didn't want it to happen. And oh my God, how he just throws himself on Tony because he's the only one who he can turn to, like save me. He's his
Exactly.
hero, and his hero can't. And oh my God, he just disintegrates in Tony's arms, and Tony has been seeing visions of this for the past, what, 7 years, just going crazy,
Exactly.
just dreading this thing that's inevitably going to happen, and then it does.
Exactly. And then like you said, the best in my opinion, like you use the word impossible. That is the most impossible situation we've ever seen Spider-Man in on the cinematic universe.
Yeah, no recourse.
Exactly. And that's why I feel like do an Avengers 4 if Iron Man is not like in a deep emotional state because of that, I'm not going to forgive them. Like they better like play that plot out to the best of their ability time Avengers 4 comes.
Yeah.
Because it would be in my opinion the way they set it up, they made it look like I mean they teased kind of that father son relationship with Iron Man 3 with the little kid that he bumps into in Tennessee. At the
Yeah, and
same
then
token though,
there was like a little bit of a hint of the demon in the bottle storyline, but they replaced alcohol with anxiety.
right. Right. And besides that, moving forward, like I think Spider-Man obviously is the closest thing that Tony Stark is going to get to a son.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying they have to play on that emotional weight. And then I don't know how they're going to play with the emotional weight of him and him and Pepper Potts' marriage getting ruined or their wedding getting ruined.
Yeah, because
Like
that was on the
is he ever
horizon,
going to come
right?
back to Earth
Hasn't
or is he going
happened
to get
yet.
stuck in space?
What's that?
I was just asking, is he going to come back to Earth for the wedding or is he going to get stuck in space? Because it's never really fully explained if they were on their honeymoon or about to get married.
Yeah, yeah. I was asking. I forget exactly where they were at in that process.
All I can
Yeah.
remember is which I kind of felt as well. Pepper was like, "Don't you dare stay up there! Like you better come down now."
Yeah. Which,
It almost sounded like the tone in her voice was like, "If you do this one more time, it's over between us."
yeah.
Like it's not going to be like Civil War where we're taking a break, popping up in the future again. Like this, it's a done deal now. You do this, that's over.
Yeah. I feel like once she, fully realized what the situation was, it's not like him just chilling and letting somebody else take care of it would have, like he was right to put himself into the fray this time.
Exactly, exactly. And then again, this is where we're seeing more of the hero version of Iron Man compared to the days of old, which I also miss of Rockstar Iron Man. Like, I don't know how long it's been that we've gotten the version of Iron Man that always has to make an entrance with an AC/DC song.
Hmm.
I don't think we'll ever get that Iron Man again. but but at the same time, it makes sense for the evolution of his character.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I was saying earlier is that they put a hint of the demon in the bottle in Iron Man 3. I would like to see them go full on depressed alcoholic Iron Man for whatever the next movie
E-
he appears in.
exactly, I agree. And then like almost what they tried to, with Professor X and Days of Future Past, they should try to fix that for Iron Man. And then at the same token, I also feel like Thanos' phrase in the beginning of the movie and the trailer was perfect when he said, "Dread it, run from it, destiny." Like you said, what Iron Man's been seeing for years in advance, and finally it's arrived, and he feels like he can't run from it.
Yeah. And what I'm interested in, like, see, like, there's some interesting things they could do with that because why has he been seeing this in advance? He doesn't have any superpowers. Like, the whole like at the end of the demon in the bottle you find out that Obadiah Stane has been like manipulating things behind the scenes and like influencing him to be and stay an alcoholic.
Right.
So it would be interesting to see there be some character out there, maybe some like cosmically powered character that has been putting these visions into his head to try and fuck up Iron Man for some reason because they saw the same future that Doctor Strange saw and they were trying to prevent that. You know what I mean?
Right. And I feel like they tried to do that with Thor in Age of Ultron, but I don't feel like that was as effective as what they could do with what you're saying about Iron Man with the demon in the bottle plot being extended a little further.
Yeah, well, that could even be incorporated into that. You know, whatever cosmic character is giving Tony these visions could also have influenced the vision that Wanda gave to Thor. Because like Wanda affected Thor, but there's no way that she could have. She doesn't know who Heimdall is.
Yeah, or maybe the plot to that may be the vision of Vision affecting Iron Man's mind.
I think that the timeline doesn't quite line up there, but
Yeah, of course that can't we can't go back now. We can't go backwards to fix that now. But I mean,
although
it was
no,
Jarvis
there's
always in his head before.
retcon here. There's a retcon here. Loki touched Iron Man's chest with the scepter that contained the Mind Stone.
Exactly.
So that moment is where he started is when he was infected by whatever that could be the character. The Mind Stone itself, these Infinity Stones were once sentient beings before the beginning of the universe, and they collapsed into singularities.
Right. Right. That actually makes the most sense. That's a perfect callback to the scene we got in the first Avengers movie. And because it played with everybody else's mind, that could be the side effect of the scepter touching his chest.
Yeah, and maybe the Mind Stone retained in sentience because it is the Mind Stone.
Right. Wow, dude. Like I said, you're a genius at fixing previous movies for great ideas. Damn, dude, this was awesome. I definitely got to wrap this up, but any final thoughts on just our general ratings for Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland compared to your 8.5 rating for Maguire?
Well, I feel like we got into some stuff that I maybe never had thought of before, and some interesting comparisons between the actors. Um, but yeah, I'd still say Tobey Maguire is my favorite. But again, I admit that is totally influenced by nostalgia goggles.
Right, right. I'm gonna go and say, which I've said for years, but I'm surprisingly actually kind of changing my decision back to my original decision again, which was he may not be my most youthful one, but I still got to give the best praise of effort to the honor of the character from a Peter Parker versus Spider-Man side to Andrew Garfield. So my ratings for them would be, I'd probably put Tom now that we like nitpicked him to the core. I'd probably give Tom Holland now. I give Toby a solid 6.5. I'll probably give Tom Holland a solid 7.5, and I'll give Andrew an 8.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I feel like Andrew, especially with him being a major fan of the character, like he almost kind of felt like a bit of like what happened to Joss Whedon, in the sense where I felt like he was such a fan that was trying to work his butt off to be the best he could be to honor the comics, but at the same token, they feel like this great sigh of relief that they don't have to be in the director or actor's chair anymore, that they could just be fans again.
It's draining.
So exactly. So I felt like, similar to what happened with Batfleck now, I feel like Garfield, had he had not so much weight on his shoulders because of the damage that Spider-Man 3 had done, and had he not had the mess that he was given with the Amazing Spider-Man 2, I felt like he could have had the potential to be the new top Spider-Man that is on everyone's brain. So that's why I still got to give him the crown for not being the perfect Peter Parker or Spider-Man, but for making the most effort, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if Amazing Spider-Man 2 was good, Tom Holland would still be doing indie films.
Exactly. And then I think with Tom Holland is that, I'm not saying he doesn't do good with the character. I just feel like he's more effortless with the character. While I felt like Andrew Garfield was putting more effort into it, because the role of Peter Parker and Spider-Man does not come as naturally to Garfield as it does to Holland, and that could be because of the age difference and their personality in real life. The same token, um, because I feel that there's an extra effort you must to really lead performance as an actor. That's why I'm giving it to Garfield.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you're saying that it was more difficult for him to get into that headspace than Tom Holland was because Tom Holland is a genuine little geek and Tom Holland
Exactly.
is this too cool
Exactly.
for school vampire weekend.
Right. And exactly. And think how many things Garfield has against him. He has the Sony curse against him. He has the Spider-Man 3 curse against him. He has the good-looking 30-year-old against him. He has while Tom Holland, he has Marvel on his side. He has youth on his side. Like, there's almost nothing that could go wrong with the Tom Holland version from a fan's point of view after looking at it in hindsight from Sony. But when you get down to the nitpicky critiques like we've done tonight, then you really get to see how much more of an effort Maguire and Garfield had to put in compared to Holland.
Yeah, I could definitely give Tom Holland, or I could definitely give Andrew Garfield most effort.
Yes, and surprisingly, surprisingly, Holland was getting more indie films prior to this, and Garfield now is getting more indie films after.
Yeah.
Like, now you see Garfield everywhere in indie films, but you don't see him anywhere near franchises anymore.
No, no, no.
That's so hilarious, dude. Anyway, more praise to him as an actor. But anyhow, this has been a solid conversation. Look forward to doing it again. And I meant to ask you, because last time you said you wanted to do it semi regularly. What would be like? Of course, you could always hit me up any other time. But what would be like a more ideal regular day you'd like to do this?
As far as day of the week,
As far as your schedule goes.
the Tuesday, Wednesdays, Thursdays are good.
All right, awesome. So we'll keep those in mind. In the meantime, till next Tuesday, just keep your topic in mind and let me know, and then I'll keep you posted, because right now my wife is 39 weeks pregnant, so she's ready to pop at any time. So if I'm in the
Congratulations.
hospital, I'll let you know. Thanks, dude. Appreciate it. All right, look forward to the next one, and you definitely gotta. Are you? I'm trying to think. You're calling this the Cinemarvel podcast, right? Do you have a different name for it?
Yeah, that's the working title at the moment.
All right, awesome. Yeah, because I was gonna ask you if that's your title, because I think it's the perfect title for what you're going for.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Cheers, dude. Talk soon.
Excellent. You have a great day.
You too.